Welcome to the Neutral Zone. We need to turn our headphone down for our guests.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I've been around for a long, long year. So many men sold away. And I was around when Jesus Christ had his moment of doubt and pain. Made damn sure that Pilate washed his hands and sealed his fate. Pleased to meet you, hope you guess my name. But what's puzzling you is the nature of my game.
Welcome to the Neutral Zone. Today is August 20th, 2018. I think immediately I would be remiss if I didn't mention that August 21st, I have a good friend that you guys know, Jim Kimmel. Tomorrow's Jesus' birthday. Check out the Urantia book. Thank you, Jim. We have great sponsors on this show, and we have all kinds of people that are saying to me, boy, you're dealing with all kinds of issues and things that people don't really talk about much on Maui. And I thought, well, that's true. There's a lot of talk going on, but, you know, first I dealt with meters and housing and things, and we just had people that thought about an election, and I thought, you know, what's the appropriate guest? And I thought, you know, I know someone that would be an ideal guest, because he can come on, because there's a whole other perspective, and that is the nation of Hawaii. I'd like to introduce Nelson Armitage, who's here. You who have Facebook Live, Nelson's in the middle here. And Steve Bass, and Tyson Saucier here from the reinstated Lawful Hawaiian Government. And you're the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for joining us. I really consider it an honor to have you here.
It's our pleasure.
People in our country of America, for a long time, have been seeing Hawaiians. I'm just wondering if this mic is in front of your face, if we're good. These guys will fix it if we need to. You know. Anyway, now the Lawful Hawaiian Government. I went to a meeting a few years ago, and I had the opportunity to watch a nation of Hawaii, which had delegates from, seems like, all the islands, come together and pass resolutions and have a government running. Now, tell me how that started. I know it's when Bill Clinton apologized, suddenly something triggered something. How'd that go?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show, Jason.
Sure.
Really important is the missing pieces to understanding Hawaii's history, you know, and what took place prior to 1893, leading up to today, you know, leading up to statehood and everything else. That's pretty much behind the scenes, you know, of understanding Western hypocrisy. And so when we talk about the reinstatement process, you know, for example, when Georgia in below Russia had their problems going between the USSR and the Federation of Russia, the difference was that the USSR changed their name to the Federation of the Soviet Union. Okay, so from a state they went to a nation state, and so now all of states that encompasses, you know, from Georgia leading all up to Russia, everybody's under the political authority of the Russian government. Okay?
Right.
And so in Hawaii, let me finish that part too. So what happened was back when George Bush Jr. was in office. The problems there was going on where Georgia's president was being elected and he's being funded by the United States. And the reason that they had this, and it's still going on, the reason of the invasion of Russia was because the United States wasn't following the rules. You know, they're violating treaty violations. They're violating a lot of rules that's not applicable to your domestic level. And so what happened, the problem that arises from that issue.
In other words, the United States was going in and trying to upset and start a new government or they were trying to stop a new government.
Or what they're trying to recognize a government as an independent state
Inside of
Russia. Right.
Okay.
And so, you know, a total independence. And so when George Bush got the word, right, he was watching a football game or baseball game, I can't remember which one it was, and simply stated that Georgia is an independent state and it is wrong of Russia to invade such a country who's totally independent. Now, if we take that little clip of statement there and we're coming back to Hawaii,
keep talking.
that application absolutely is viable for the Kingdom of Hawaii, you know, because of treaties and so on and so forth. That is only within the framework of the national status of that country.
To our viewers, I want to, if I can, what you gave was a long view of, I'm going to give you the short sentence. The violations of the people that were here in the Kingdom of Hawaii many years ago, you're comparing to what's going on there in the Soviet Union. So what's going on that George Bush opened his mouth as President of the United States and they were trying to establish something over there. There was already something going on similar to what was going on here in our history. And that history, I'm hoping people will go to, you know, the MauiMiracle.org, the Reinstated Hawaiian Government site. What's the site's address? Do you know?
It's the Lawful Hawaiian Government.org.
LawfulHawaiianGovernment.org. There you'll find really good information. You know, I think that many people. I went to Maui College, and I had a course there. It was called Hawaii Center of the Pacific. And when I was in the middle of that course, I realized if your story got out there, you would have a lot of people that aren't Hawaiian standing for your truth. And they would stand behind it, and a lot more could happen. That's why I'm excited, because the power of this truth affects this election. Excuse me, but I know maybe you guys are thinking, you know, we're from another country. We're the Kingdom of Hawaii. But the people that are in America, if they're Hawaiian or they have a sympathy for causes, have the ability to shape what's going on. Because at any point, that's what we're going to talk about, by the way, what you are doing impacts everything going on here, and people would be well served to have a continuity of good service. And,
well, just like what you said about the people who would step up and support the truth, you know, prior to 1893, of course, there were many American citizens, foreigners that was already citizens of the country, were against the illegal overthrow of the kingdom in 1843. You know, and so in 1843, Kamehameha the Third was reinstated to his proper authority. So, you know, it's 1-0 right now. And in 125 years has gone by, it still doesn't change the landscape of the rules that's applicable to reinstate your country. It's who has the right to reinstate the country. For example, you cannot have the Filipinos representing Japan, or you cannot have Japan representing Australia, you know, so on and so forth. So we have... education is the most important subject matter to understanding the whole clip of Western hypocrisy, to be quite honest, and how it has an effect on the country of 125 years of being illegally overthrown and controlled, and right to the point of today is so well conditioned where that's the last thing they want to hear is a reinstatement process.
Well, you know, I hear about the reinstated Hawaiian I don't want to, it's the Lawful Hawaiian Government being reinstated, and now that it's up and in place, I almost think of it like you're holding your finger in the dike for all Hawaiians until all their agreements come. You're making sure that in international law, that you're doing the right thing to make sure that the nation of Hawaii is recognized and dots its I's and crosses its T's.
It's the general basics.
Because we always hear as haoles, white guys, or excuse me, I don't mean that as a specific white. I mean all us that aren't. We all would like to think that we can make this all right.
Yeah, we can. I believe there is so much truth that people have been misled.
We hear that the Hawaiians are fighting and that there's all these groups, they'll never come together. But the real truth is, however it's being fought, which we'll get about, I'm sure, talking, it's everyone will come together when all the pieces are there, and you're holding a very important piece because you're recognized in international circles as the government.
Yeah, we are, yeah.
That is the most powerful statement. Who enforces these laws? I mean, I'm guessing, what trips over to Europe and stuff, what are you doing there? What are you trying to do?
Well, you know, as part of the whole educational process, people don't, you know, at the domestic level has no knowledge of understanding what it takes to, which is 125 years old, and how do you correct this rule, you know, this whole perceptive of believing that this is part of America, when it's not an easy task, but I'll be honest, all we need to do is go by the rule book, you know? So we follow the rules in any general form. If you want to play basketball, for example, and you join the basketball league and the NBA, right? It's impossible to have the NFL come in there and assert their claims and want to play basketball with football rules. And so that application applies to, you know, any status of a treaty of every country. So you cannot have another foreign party, a new party, a foreign party come in here and recreate the wheel.
So when you go to Europe, for example, there's I guess it's an international court, right?
Yeah, there's two of them.
That did you know that nations are in court at a different level? Well, at this international court, where is it? That's in The Hague,
the Netherlands.
Netherlands. Yeah,
in Den Haag. It's called Den Haag. So it's a pretty neat. I gotta admit, it's fascinating. First of all, just to get there and really observe the whole spectrum of the international community, and it's how do you put it? For me, as a Hawaiian who went there and just experienced the matter, was wow, fascinating. First of all, we went to the international courts first, the justice, and I did the legwork to qualify our position. So the position there is well recognized, and to be recognized, you have to have a proper authority. And to have that proper authority, you need to carry and validate your jurisdiction, your proper status of your authority, and who's part of this, government and the people of the country. And so that took a bit, but the validation was there, and it proves that, yep, the Lawful Hawaiian Government does exist according to the rules.
So you went through a lot of scrutiny of all that went on, and knowing it's the United States, and all that went on with the people occupying and all that stuff was all reviewed, right?
Yeah.
And they recognized, all that being whatever it was, you guys are a real kingdom?
Well, they recognize the jurisdiction of this country. So that means that the kingdom does exist under its own plenary power.
What is the goal? I mean, if I was to say, are you looking to suddenly put in a new government that I'm sure makes things better, brings back more cultural enrichment, all the things that.
Well, that's a question that, you know, a lot of people don't want to hear, a lot of people don't want to hear. You know, for example, like Steve here, who came in and I explained to him our position, how we're trying to accomplish the goal. The whole important thing is that accomplishing something at this level, you don't need to raise guns. That's the first thing. No. You know, we're the people of aloha, and maybe we can teach the world how to raise, respect with aloha. And so, and you have to use it proper. And you have to be proper when you're using anybody's culture. It doesn't matter what perspective of peace and harmony it is in any country, because every country has it. Every single country has aloha. And so when you find using the rules that's applicable and trying to get the governor to admit that what he's doing is absolutely out of order, and he needs to fulfill his obligations under international rules, or the mayor, and on. They have a hard time accepting these matters.
So I'm gonna change it. New consciousness from Earth to Earth 2. Here comes Earth 2. Boop. Now the Kingdom of Hawaii has been accepted. What shift do we expect people here to see? I imagine ownership changes will happen of a lot of lands, but respect for the land is there.
Well, that's the whole concept, how many people being duped about land, and who's profiting from all of this, and who has a right to correct all of this. It's not a group that has a right to correct it. It's not a substitute entity to correct the problems, nor is it a matter of an individual to correct the problem. It's the jurisdiction of that country has that authority to absolutely fulfill the obligations under the treaty responsibility, and that treaty responsibility takes effect after the fact of making sure that everybody in that country has a right to participate in its governing authority, and its governing authority has the right to correct all of the injustices. So, I mean, Jace, that's a great question, because you got to realize 125 years went by, and first of all, most people don't even understand really what is a Hawaiian person. You know, at my age, I am so glad that I was right in the middle of all of this actions, that from the start of criminal conduct to the ongoing criminal conduct. And I experienced a lot of differences of understanding who's right, who's wrong, who has this, who has that. And all it came down to was really jurisdiction. And so the state of Hawaii has no political authority. The United States has no political authority because they finally went to apologize for their criminal conduct 100 years later. Okay, so when we want to talk about how the economy and all of this stuff comes in, I believe you have to have a true understanding of what effects got into the effect and what's going to make it all happen properly, you know. And so the bottom line is real clear. Without a legal understanding, or at least some source of information to understand what it takes to put it all back, is the most important element to trying to achieve the goal, you know. And so it's, like I said, 125 years went by. Where do you want to start? I think education is very important, because without that, you cannot achieve you cannot go into a game in the middle of the game and try to complete the game. You know,
I understand. Well, here we are. You know, it's like we knocked out the first pitcher. We've had a few pitchers in there now. Hey, Jim, we just had another visitor in the studio. In fact, I already said happy birthday to Jesus August 21st. Did you know that?
Oh, man, good for you.
Yeah. Jim Kimmel just joined us in the studio. We're pretty cramped in here. This is a radio station and looking like a railroad station. But
just to answer the question,
what I'm thinking is I want to take away what I call the fear I feel that people feel that suddenly if there's a lawful Hawaiian government and the Hawaiian nation brings itself in, that it's going to change things. Well, it's sure going to change some ownership.
Well, let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. Everybody's afraid of fear. You know, every single human being has that fear instinct. Doesn't matter if you're Mike Tyson or Michael Jordan, you know, it doesn't matter. Or even me. You know, I have a fear of making sure that nobody gets hurt, you know, because right is right, wrong is wrong. So when we look at the 100 years of deception, 1993, I mean, it goes from 1893 to 1895, 1897, where the new president of the United States. So that timeline really dictates.
History, I mean, so much little span. 1849 was one thing, but then in 1890s there was a bunch of activity, a takeover and a deception, and trying to reclaim the thing from the U.S. Change of presidents. I mean, it is worthy of. I'm sure it's a movie or two, but. Fact is, it's changed the course of our history.
Oh, it did.
These guys were closed down. They couldn't talk their own language, couldn't bring their own culture out for a whole chunk of time. You probably remember that in your family.
I do. It's right there in my mind. But the reality is that, again, like you said, if we go back and make a timeline and follow all of these timelines, everything that you look at is absolutely criminal. It doesn't matter how you burn the tape or cook it or burn it, hang it out and dry it out. It comes out criminal. So when, and you know, continuing the criminal conduct does not help, you know, the lie that goes on. So after, imagine this now, finally 100 years went by and they apologized for their criminal conduct. Now, wow, what would a normal pirate do with 100 years of tyranny? The political deception, the deprivation of misleading the world, first of all. And then how do you correct all of this? You know, you don't just get the information. I mean, and they're not going to play directly right by the rule. You know, so the United States, the only person, when you read their rules and you read the kingdom's law, it's very clear. the only person who has the right to correct all of the injustices, make it real clear, is the President of the United States, who signs the treaties. And in Congress, 2/3 of Congress has to agree to the treaty changes. Congress has no right to intervene and go make justices claims for any country, only the President. My question today is real clear. How come everybody in Hawaii has a right to decide what is right for the kingdom, when, first of all, the rules applicable only to one authority, one people? And with respect to those who believe that trying to correct the injustice is one thing, but do you have the right to intervene? Because, like I said, Russia cannot intervene for the Philippines matters with the United States. And the United States will call that a treaty violation, because they're not signatory to a treaty with the Philippines along with the United States, a joint resolution or anything like that.
The thing that as I'm listening, I recognize, like I said, we created a new now we're the Kingdom of Hawaii, and there'll be.
And but it's not a new one, though. Remember, it's not a new one.
No, it's not. I understand that, but we got about 3 minutes till our break, so I'm going to quickly wrap it up and get ready for the next half. What I'd like to recognize is, we'll fix the microphone so we can see your beautiful faces. Anyway, is the one that can forgive, because forgiveness,
that's right.
And also realizing that we come from the represent a step up in culture to what we see going on in the world.
Yes, you're right.
And that is a glowing presence that I think introduced from the heart in the center of this where we are can do a lot. So I think information, like you say, is the next step. So I'm glad we're doing this show. And all groups that are Hawaiian can realize we're bringing all the ships up. A rising tide raises all ships. Education is going to make things better and make it so that we can all move forward. And we'll see where the law, engages and what can be enforced and how it can be enforced. But if we come to understand and embrace the Hawaiian culture and what we're doing and give the Hawaiians a feeling of I want to say ownership, if you will, but there is no ownership. But that's from God. But I'm just feeling that it's been a long time since the Hawaiian culture has been recognized. I thank you for what you're doing. I'm going to take a break. We got commercial sponsors. We got our own here locally. And then we're going to go to the sponsors. I think they set me up here on the computer. We're going to make the microphones move a little bit and see what's up. And we will be back in a couple of minutes. Hang on.
They say that car crashes happen in slow motion. The reality is that crashes happen fast. There's no time to think and no time to check if your child is in the right car seat. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your kids in the right seat for their age and size? Don't think you know. Know you know. Get more info at safercar.gov/the-right-seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hola, soy Miriam Laraway. En Colombia viajaremos por cada uno de nuestros países. Recorreremos su rica herencia y tradiciones. Un programa ameno y lleno de cultura, con segmentos de importancia para nuestra comunidad. Sintoniza KAKU y conéctate en Conexión Latina a través de La Voz de Maui 88.5 FM.
Funding for KAKU 88.5 FM is provided by sponsors like Valley Isle Marine Center, with sales and services on boats, carts, and more in the Maui boating community. Located at 1976 Wells Street, at the corner of Wells and Market in Wailuku, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. For more information, call 808-244-2000 or visit their website at www.valleyisleMarineCenter.com. Mahalo for supporting KAKU Voice of Maui.
Hawaii Youth Service Directory is online at 808youth.com. We envision a Hawaii where all youth are connected to the support they need to walk a pono path towards health, happiness, and abundance. 808youth.com is a free, easy-to-use online directory funded by the Office of Youth Services. If you're looking for a family-friendly event, check out our events calendar. and connect with us on social media. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Hello. They seem to say go Jason, so that means whatever button wasn't pushed. I'm going to push this one for a second. Hang on.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma,
guys,
you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar.
I thought we have 3 minutes of commercials, and hopefully they're stopping it from inside. Let's come back here. There's a commercial break. We're gone for 3 minutes, and we come back. For some reason, something wasn't the way they wanted, but that gives us a little more time to talk. Let me thank my sponsors. Cash for Gold Kama'aina Loan in Wailuku. They're a bank for the people that can't go to banks because they don't have good credit, but they can go back and forth there. And also the MauiMiracle.org. They're our local sponsors.
Great.
Now, we've been covering some stuff here, but, I want to talk about the political things. But I also wanted to talk about are there a lot of different Hawaiian groups? Is this something that we can do to help make when I talk to and mention names about something to someone and they say, oh, no, they are this group or that group, how do we recognize what's going on so that what you're doing is recognized, that, in my mind, as a core? So that, am I correct in that, Nelson?
Yeah, there's a difference between groups. America has a great way of labeling people, And so when they went into Kuwait, for example, they labeled it. You just started labeling these people as, the south, the north, and east and west side of the country, and absolutely just called the north the Kurds, and then the south was part of the Saddam Hussein position, and on. It's ridiculous. They're not groups. They're the peoples of that country. They're the First Nation, the first peoples of that state or nation, really. And in our case, the group situation is America's got millions of them, 501c3 groups. You got Boy Scouts, Cop Scouts, you name it. But they don't hold authority. Remember that.
There's a guy around, his name, I do. His name is Keanu Sai. He's somehow involved and teaching people about what's going on through history. And there's guys at the college teaching about the history. And then when I see there's a guy on Molokai named Walter Riddy, he's got things going on also. They're talking about what they're doing. I don't listen too closely because I know it, like you say, whatever authority, who's recognizing what? What are we doing with all this? Are we creating a separate nation? They're talking about Kohalave, and they're talking about Molokai and creating a nation from there. Does all that...
That's a great way of dividing the people, and who's funding them, who's funding these independents or these individuals. A true nation doesn't need funding, The true nation comes off of their own natural resources, their own cause of creating their financial cash sustainability. But the bottom line is, that's what happened in 1893. Real simple. They didn't want to pay their taxes to the Kingdom of Hawaii. That's part of the hidden secrets, So what they did was illegally started to collaborate and put this whole illegal process together, and voila, here we are today.
I see.
And so when you look at those who are advocating sovereignty, those who are trying to recreate the wheel, or trying to put a nation within a nation, we're the only country in the world has that proposal on the table. Nobody else has that, because it's been so misconstrued by individuals that's misleading the general public, especially in like I said, the people of Hawaii, the original peoples of this country, has the proper authority to correct the injustice. Not the newcomers, how, for example, the political authority came to Mazie Hirono Abercrombie, Neil Abercrombie, who was a senator, prior senator, Senator Inouye, former Senator Inouye, and Akaka. Well, they were the political deception through the whole process, because when we reinstated the country back in 1999, March 13th, that raised the flag. So from March 13th backwards, there was no such word as the Native Hawaiian Government or Native Legal Aid and all of this Native programs. After we reinstated the country, all of a sudden, Congress woke up to the fact, after Prime Minister Noor sent the illegal notice that we reinstated the country, we're waiting on your response, you know. Of course they don't want to respond. That's natural, man. It's a huge liability on the table. And so by not responding, we're still living in this dilemma. And so make it a longer story short, where now you have foreign aliens who's in Hawaii, who's trying to claim that they're Hawaiians, like Inouye, Akaka, Mazie Hirono, Neil Abercrombie, and they were the ones who absolutely mislead the whole entire world. When you look at the congressional records and of how they're trying to create, they don't have the substance, what it takes to put the laws and put the rules back together, because they're the wrong party. In other words, for example, we cannot go to Japan and expect the Filipinos to decide what is right for the Japanese, or anyway, vice versa. So when they got caught at their own table discussing these issues with their own attorney generals, what amazes me is that how come the attorney generals didn't stop them at that time and correct their problems? You know, Donald Trump's got some serious issues going on internally, and it's the same process, you know. It doesn't matter what level it is, but it's the same corrupt action going on here in Hawaii. So finally, when all of this government-to-government relationship, remember from 2000 all the way just to recently, maybe 2005, 15, right, they finally said, okay, well, the Native Hawaiian government, we're not natives. We are not. We're original peoples of this country. The natives are guys like Abercrombie, who use the identity of this country, the Commonwealth of this country, to survive on their own substitute process.
I, number one, understand and appreciate what you said. And let's now assume that
the governor do the right thing. Yeah.
Well, now let's say, what does that look like? What does that look like?
Well, let's put it this way. I have a friend that has a great outlook on the whole thing. So, Steve, why don't you give us your analysis of what?
Welcome to our show. Steve Bass is here in the studio with us. Some people can't see us. We all look like
human beings.
That's right.
And what is how do I think about this? You know, for one thing, let me be clear that I cannot speak for the Hawaiian government. I have some opinions of my own, and sometimes they coincide. I'm not sure what exactly. I mean, the Hawaiian government wants to be able to adjudicate issues. Land, I think, is what we're driving at. You ask questions.
Well, what I'm asking really is, in my world now, in Jason's world, now we're in a new world, and I decided you're right. Now the question to me is, the people that are here now that they heard that that's so, are they all waiting for someone to come to the door and say, I'm sorry, you have 24 hours, you have to leave because this isn't yours? Or are they going to hear and say, we are all now, if you want, to become citizens of the Kingdom of Hawaii, and together, here's how it's going to change. All the monies that were rooted here are going to stay rooted there. We're going to keep people in their positions, but we're going to be making changes that go along with the culture, that embrace things in a different... Has there been a plan? I mean, that's why I'm asking it that way.
There are tentative plans for a lot of those sort of things. If we take away the fear,
we'll bring a lot of people looking for the education because they realize there's
Who makes the fear? Jace, what is the fear? Where does it come from?
Fear is of the unknown.
Where all this fear comes from?
It comes from being unknown. When you hear Hawaiian, and I got here in 1988, and when I got here, I wondered why sometimes the Hawaiians looked at me a little funny. And then as I lived here longer, I got to understand more about what happened to them, more about what happened with their language, all these things growing up around them that changed their beautiful culture and everything. Everyone came here to see someone do hula that was outlaw, that maybe wasn't even part of whatever. All the history is all gone. Now we look like Honolulu, which looks like Los Angeles. And we're all trying to fight. But the Hawaiian culture is, I mean, it's like, okay, get rid of all the buildings. We're going to start with huts. No, I mean, people are afraid of what it means to be modern.
I don't think that
the
stage
modern
will never
nation,
happen, though.
But I'm just saying the modern nation of Hawaii, the old and true customs and traditions and culture, embraced with the modern world of technology and everything that's going on. Have you?
Of course, yeah. We have a government that does that, and it's what Steve has been pondering over the matter, because he's trying to figure out how do we make this, Nelson, and I'll let him try to finish up his part.
The ponderer.
I guess I kind of lost track of where I was. You're talking about land disputes and whether or not people are going to be bulldozed out of their house. And
I'm just talking about people say, now that there's a Kingdom of Hawaii, what does that mean? I don't want them to Kingdom of Hawaii. I have this land. All the title companies are going to get sued. That's because I don't own the land, and all that stuff is sometimes, I think, like this giant 800-pound elephant in the room. That people don't listen to what you're telling them.
That's a small elephant, afraid. 800 pounds.
That's true, actually. I never thought about that. An 800-pound gorilla.
That's a huge one. Okay.
And my point being, if we can set aside the fear part, we can get on with loving each other and moving forward, because we're just putting what is right is right.
Right is right.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
And what's right is for Hawaiians to be able to make these decisions for themselves. And there's some criminal history involved with the way the land has played out, and sometimes that may be problematic for individuals that have land, no telling. But it can certainly be equitably decided in a Hawaiian court, whereas it appears pretty clear that none of those issues are being equitably decided in any American courts right now. All of it goes straight to the corporate people who pirated it in the first place. So,
well, you've had some successes here locally. There's a gentleman that I had interviewed who was running for council, Keamoku Kapu, a few years ago. Really nice gentleman. Now he's running for OHA, in fact. I guess I can say that on the air. Now, he fight in the American courts. Mm-hmm. And had success. You've had some other successes at lands down in Maliko Gulch, and there are other places. I met a gentleman who passed away, a big heavyset guy on the west side of Lahaina, Olawalu. Does that ring a bell? He always had anyway. But there are people here who have titles to land that supersede things that we see. That's right. That's what Nelson is talking about, and Steve are talking about. So those kind of things do exist, and change of ownership could well happen to people. And people that think they own this huge swath of land suddenly realize that there are actually families that have clear title to these properties.
Correct. Well, the rules is real simple, Jason. What the problem is, putting those rules in effect is the issue that the only responsibility in the state is the governor and the attorney general, who has the right to oversight these matters properly in accordance to Title 28 of the United States Judicial Practices, because they cannot use the kingdom's constitution. It's illegal to use any foreign government's authority when you're a substitute entity. So the governor and the attorney general are substitutes. They cannot make proper, like what Steve just said, because
they don't have jurisdiction.
They're the wrong party.
Is that right? They're not the ones
they're the wrong group.
That should be making any decisions anyway.
They're the wrong
it's
group.
like when someone comes into the courtroom in America and in America about their license plate. And I'm only using it as a simple...
Perfect example.
It's a great example since it happens all day.
Well, it happens quite a bit. And the question is, I am not, a citizen of the nation of Hawaii.
They know that. They know that. Here's the real problem behind that. They won't accept it only because you got to look at it this way. from 1959 to today. It's 59 years of the statehood's tyranny. Okay, and I'm talking the deprivation misleading the concept of reality. And so when the exercise of a normal nation has a right to decide whatever they want, they have no right to intervene because they have no status. When you look at Arakaki versus Lingo, Oha in the state of Hawaii, okay, Arakaki is known as a group, you know, and the federal government had not recognized the state as a state yet since 1959. Can you imagine that? Since 1959, the state of Hawaii is still an applicant to the United States. It's in Arakaki versus Lingo. Yeah, that's part of the history that...
Arakaki versus Lingo. What was that situation?
It's, make a long story short, it's that the Arakakis was believed that they have a right not to pay the taxes like the Indians. They have a right to all lands because they believe they're the beneficiaries of this country. They're not. And so the federal government stepped in and said, no, this is a non-justiciable political question. Of course, judges here don't want to hear that because imagine being on the bench for 10 plus years and you made all the criminal wrongs, adjudications, and the effects behind those that when the fan does spin, it's serious. I mean, it's beyond, I wouldn't say repair, it's just that now it's, you know, it doesn't bring no fear. It's the right is right, wrong is wrong. But when you're going to mistreat the people who has the absolute right here, yeah, by telling them that you don't have a right to travel with your own license plates, your own driver's license, your registration, and traveling on the roads that they don't even own, the mayor, the governor, that's, you know, that's where I would say that's where the real problem starts because they don't want to accept the fact. They're afraid of losing what they got today. That's their fear factor, not ours.
So I'm gonna try to. I'm making up a scenario again. Decision has happened in international court. Hawaii now exists.
Okay.
What can we expect that the mayor and the whole thing is still in place? Will the government of Hawaii come in and somehow? I want to say, is there some kind of transition? Has any of this stuff been discussed or worked out in any way to make?
Well, let's put it this way. You know, after you've been mistreated for 125 years, you know, for example, like Kemoku's property, he has been in court for 18 years, okay?
Wow.
And the courts have been absolutely mistreating every single land case. Because why? The land decisions doesn't belong to a new state. That's the new state you talked about earlier. Now, that new state has they never gel. They cannot gel because they're the wrong party. They don't have enough catalyst to make this thing harden. They don't have enough epoxy, 2-bit piece epoxy to make it all work right. Mm-hmm. So they lost that integrity of becoming what they're supposed to be, a substance of reality. But the reality is that they're the wrong party, can never happen, and making decisions for the United States who admitted to these crimes 100 years ago, 125 years total, and they're making decisions for the United States, which is, tell me that's right or wrong.
Oh, I get it that it's wrong for them to do that, but I also know that you told me 125 years means none of us were there, and yes, we all recognize it was wrong, and what was done, and how all these things happened over these years were absolutely wrong.
To correct that, only the government.
Yeah. That's why I brought a thing about modern Hawaii. So as much as now we have the right jurisdiction, so the decisions are made by whatever new body somehow. I don't know it either. Well, we're looking into a crystal ball for what that's going to exactly look at the transition, and where the monies go, and how everything flows, and how we make sure the plumbing still works, and everything. That's quite a workout. I'm sure
that's pretty easy. It's an easy task, to be quite honest. You know, it's an easy task only because we have the wrong functioning party in there who's not putting the funds where it absolutely belongs. Okay, if we're the original peoples of this country, then why we're the most low class persons labeled in our own country? Something did wrong there.
I don't know what you mean by low class. I never think of you that way.
No,
Hawaiians that way.
I didn't mean that you think of us that way.
No.
It's in the books that it's written that way. Okay, it's how the senators and representatives of this country today, from 59 to today, had put this language together. You know, and Steve, go ahead, Steve.
No, please.
There was something that came to my attention that was real telling, and I forget which judge it was, Kawano or whatever. During one of these cases, the subject of, Hawaiian authority came up, and the apology resolution. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the guy says, no, they didn't apologize to you guys. I don't know how many people are familiar with the apology resolution, but Bill Clinton recognized all this stuff that we're talking about and labeled bullet points. We apologize for this, that, and the other invasions, instances of genocide and the whole business. And what did Kawano say? We didn't apologize to you guys.
Right.
And
that was Judge Peter Cahill.
Okay. My apologies to Judge Kawano, who I'm sure has got his own skeletons. But
we didn't apologize to you guys.
Right, meaning you, and this goes back to the business of the shift
Is he still a practicing judge?
You call him up. He's at office right now.
Thank you, Your Honor, but I think that was a rather coarse way of, showing your prejudice.
Well, it's exactly what has taken place, because he didn't apologize to Hawaiians. He apologized to native Hawaiians, which is a different matter from the original Hawaiians. This was sort of a political move to stack voting role. It was a gerrymandering move. The development of this so-called native Hawaiian, who's not really a native Hawaiian, maybe Japanese or American or whatever. But, the executives at Abercrombie or whatever it is, Alexander and Baldwin, are not native, well, I guess they are native Hawaiians, the way the definition of that reads, but they're not original Hawaiians.
Right.
And that's what the guy was saying, Cahill. We apologize to everybody but you, actual Hawaiians.
And I always say, now that they apologize, what does it mean to for example, the quality? Do Hawaiians get special education opportunity?
Well, let's go back to the apology first. Okay, they apologize. All of the nation status abilities all coming after the fact of getting knowledge, understanding where we're going from here. So in reality, when they apologize, 1993, what do you call prosecutor's best dream would be when he gets a criminal in the room and he confesses to the crime. That makes it happen and admits to it. In detail, blah, blah, blah. And it makes the job easier. Thank you so much for your cooperation. Right?
And that's what Clinton did by his apology.
Did they ever went to court for it? No. Remember now, you still have a court matter to this issue.
Sure.
Okay, 1993. Did they ever go to court yet? No, of course not. Not yet. So the manipulation of 1993 to today, as we're sitting here talking story, continues and continues, using every resources of governing activities or sector groups or guys like whoever you named earlier down the line. They're using them guys to mislead the whole process. And it's self-executing, first of all. And that's where it's criminally wrong, recognized. The United Nations of the Criminal Courts of Justice, the United Nations of Justice, the committees on the human rights divisions. There's a whole list of those committees that absolutely in disagreement with the United States acts. And the only difference is we didn't arrive properly yet to get there to now settle this whole matter. We're getting to the point of getting this on the table without any disruption. That's it's the most important thing, so that the United States do take responsibility for their 1993 resolution, and a resolution, police officers, judges. You name it. The description about a joint resolution is meritless. It's just a bunch of words. And first of all, if you don't understand what U.S. international law means, you shouldn't open your mouth, because it holds serious criminal consequences, regardless of ignorance of the law. Is no excuses. They will tell you when you go to court, right? But at the end of it all, it holds a whole lot of consequences. And so the false interpretation of understanding and trying to cover up, America's criminal conduct is well reported.
So we are, I don't think we're the first, but surely we're hoping that we are reigniting the interest of many to find out about what went on, what is now the situation, and realize that when we have elections here in America, that there may be things happening in the near future that we need to, it could be suddenly now, boom, international law recognized Kingdom of Hawaii reinstated, that they recognize and now jurisdiction, and something is going to happen. But we have to remember that we're talking about something that's coming from giving people back their rights and giving people back and their sense of pride and things that were stripped away from them. So
that's only a natural thing to do.
Yeah. I do. And as far as what will happen, the older I get, the more I realize that old adage, we don't take it with us. And, and I think that's why I brought you in right here as the primary election is happening, because I recognize and honor the Kingdom of Hawaii. And I recognize that when I ran for mayor in 1994, I actually thought about it. I thought, I might be a good transition person to be able to find a way to gently and appropriately change whose jurisdiction and who controls this, but do the right thing.
Right.
To try to pass the baton of truth and love,
That's what it's about, it's being humble, because Steve is, and, Tyson here, we all understand. And, of course, it's uprooting, really, to be honest. I mean, when you look at the whole situation, it's so criminal. And especially if you go deep into it, it's so criminal that I already saw The Wizard of Oz in Pinocchio. What else does it take for a judge to realize what he's doing criminally wrong? The governor, the mayors, and the attorney general of the state, who has the responsibility to fulfill their obligations under federal rule, because they're not a state. Remember that.
Let's say now they listen to this show. Please listen to this show. What do we want to say to them that might move this forward in some meaningful way?
Well, Jace, I'll be honest. We try to communicate with them, And with all due respect, our Prime Minister is a great leader, to be honest, because we opened the door, we made communications, tried to sit down and openly discuss this like human beings, diplomatically or however you want to put it, because it does have a fear factor card over everybody. Well, that's one thing. But imagine, I've seen a lot of great kupunas pass away and just suffering from passing because they know what was wrong from their time, it's like sad. It's so. I caught the second generation, growing up, and like the third, and now I don't know. I guess I'm gonna be the fourth. It's our turn to correct this injustice. And we're doing it the right way, like how we were taught at home. And you gotta be humble. You gotta be peaceful. You gotta be loving, but don't cheat yourself understanding the right. And don't let those cheat you either. Because crime is is a hidden secret that. It is vast. And first of all, if you don't have no understanding who you are first, you don't understand what your obligations are, what rules apply to you, then that's where the confusion comes in. Because the governor and everybody else is excluded from our process. No matter what they say, what they do, they're not the proper party. So if today, if you want to call the governor up and ask him, do you recognize Henry Noah as the prime minister? Or the question is, well, of course they don't want to recognize it. Imagine the liability process.
What would you ask him for? I mean, we have a couple of minutes. To go. Well, in other words, let's say the ruling happens. What could be moving you ahead in some meaningful way that makes you feel like, hey, we are starting to get traction here on our kingdom? Is there something that can happen now?
Well, I'll give you a minute.
Oh, yeah. Boy. There's lots of stuff. For one thing, the kingdom is maybe recognized by the UN, but not by the state of Hawaii. We've had better luck interacting with the feds. They've made some concessions. But the first thing would be the recognition, and then we sit down and negotiate these points, which are really a matter for various ministerial offices and legislation. I mean, what do we want to do about this or that perceived infraction? Well, that's for the legislation to decide and write up statutes. The kingdom has an updated constitution that was voted in 2000. They have a legislature in place that they cycle through every, what is it, 2 years?
4 years.
4 years, their elections. The Hawaiians have processes in place with which to deal with all these questions. First, the state has to recognize the kingdom, or the federal government. It does have jurisdiction over its monkeys
and
here,
could enforce the state to
exactly. They don't have any jurisdiction over the kingdom.
Steve,
but
I don't mean to be cutting things off. You can see we're running.
That's what happens.
You know what ends up happening. I hope you'll come back and be a guest on our show again. And no, this is only really radio. This is all Facebook Live. That's extra. But we can do television, and we can bring charts and arrows, and I just would like to continue our conversation.
Be more than happy
and
to.
Bring the love and aloha and understanding of what's going on to a new level. And may there be lots of cooperation and help. Now, I hear all kinds of people around me, or I was just someone rattling papers. Until they tell I got a minute, I think, there it is, 1 minute and 13 seconds. And then we're going to do a little closing music and stuff.
Oh, no, you don't, apparently.
I want to thank you for having me on the show.
Is that it?
You said you're out.
That's it.
You might be cut off.
Well, you're still alive on